Good evening. The Chennai International Center is happy to present yet another event today. This is on a very, very important and topical topic, which is water. And we have with us, we should call them warriors, who are battling various stakeholders to ensure that the water problem is tackled in a sustainable way. So we have with us Sri Vishwanath, who is a civil engineer and an urban planner. He's come down all the way from Bangalore to be with us today. He has 38 years of experience in the water, wastewater, and sanitation sector, helping design rainwater harvesting, aquifer recharge, wastewater recycling, and eco sand systems. He's an adjunct professor and teaches a course on the theme Water at the Azim Premji University, Bengaluru. He's a trustee with the Biome Environment Trust. He's a director at Biome Environmental Solutions, an ecological architecture practicing firm. He is a technical committee member with the Bangalore Water Supply and Sewerage Board, the Rural Development Engineering Department, Government of Karnataka, for the Jal Jeevan Mission scheme. He writes a weekly column called Water Wise for 12 years in the Hindu. He has been a member of various expert committees which help formulate the rainwater harvesting policy and law for Bangalore, the wastewater policy for Karnataka, and the water policy for Karnataka drafted by the Karnataka Knowledge Commission. He was Secretary General of the International Rainwater Catchment Systems Association for 4 years. He was advisor at Argyam and for the India Water Portal for 10 years. He is a recipient of the Namma Bangalore Award 2011, the Bhagirath Prayas Samman 2018, and has been selected as an Ashoka Fellow. He enjoys most working with the community on livelihood-based issues with farmers, well diggers, fishers, women on restoring water and land spaces. It is a pleasure to invite Sri Vishwanath onto the stage, please. Another eminent speaker today, who has been with us on several occasions before, is Arun Krishnamurthy. Most of you know Arun. He is an environmental activist who has initiated the campaign of cleaning various lakes across India. He is known for founding the Environmentalist Foundation of India, EFI 2011, based in Chennai, which has its branches in 15 states and other cities such as Hyderabad, Delhi, and Coimbatore. Arun is with the organization, has been successful in cleaning at least 169 lakes in the country, and having worked in Google before quitting the job to dedicate voluntarily, he was chosen as among the 5 people for the prestigious Rolex Awards for Enterprise in 2012 for scientific lake restoration in Chennai. Arun was awarded in the year 2012 at Geneva. He was the youngest to win the award. The award was in recognition of Arun's work towards lake restoration in India. He worked at Google but later quit to start his own company. He has stated that environment and wildlife has always attracted him, but the degradation of the urban greenery has motivated him to protect it. EFI was founded in 2007. It was self-funded and was registered as a trust in 2012. The organization recruits volunteers mainly through school programs, including seminars and workshops. Their main projects include lake restoration, beach cleanups, herbs restoration, stray animal care, and eco bags introduction. He owns his company, Business Krish Info Media, which works in the area of digital media marketing, corporate training, business development, and election results predictions. Great pleasure in inviting Arun onto the stage. So both of them are going to keep you enthralled with their activities and their profound knowledge on the subject of water. So it's over to you. Please take it forward.
Primarily, Vanakkam, good evening. It's an absolute pleasure to be back. And in a city of almost 1.4 crore people, from Ennur to Guduvanjeri, Tirumalisai to Uttandi, these are the people who've chosen water as a subject. So that gives us great confidence. Yes. And we are doing everything in our own limits to ensure that you believe we are nature conservationists by wearing camouflage pants, growing a tiny beard. I'm doing everything under the sun to ensure that you are actually going to listen to what we're going to say. Simple, if we gave you a piece of paper and a pencil and asked you to draw something about nature, what would you draw? You'll draw a hill, you'll draw a stream, you'll draw a coconut tree, you'll put a sun behind that hill, you'll put a sunflower under that tree, a butterfly, a bee, and if you're good enough, maybe a triangular house with a dog and bunch of human figurines around it. And if you were asked series of questions, should we chop down all the trees? All of us are going to say no. Should we actually battle over the Adyar? I'm sure there are historians in the audience who can, over a cup of coffee, tell you the story, the interesting story of how there was a huge battle right behind us and how the French won it, and how there's two nice, beautiful islands in this river, which actually tells a bigger story. Every water story in Chennai, whether it's the Captain Cotton Canal, whether it's the Oteri Nala, the Buckingham Canal, the Nandanam Canal, or the different lakes of Chennai, and one day, one session wouldn't be enough for me to just name them. For example, the Madambakam, Keelkattalai, Morai, Mithanamalli, the different kinds of water bodies that Chennai enjoys. And another beautiful fact that we live in a coastal city, and then if you went around doing a social experiment asking people, or if I just ask people here, right hand is going to be agree, left hand is going to be disagree, yes? And if you forgot which one's right hand, I'll turn. This is right hand, this is left hand. Also, towards end of this session, after Professor Vishwanath is done, I'm going to give you another activity. On the way back home, there is something that you'll have to stop by, because there's only one road from here you leave, and you can't leave without noticing a few things that we've done. And I'm going to give you an activity, so please pay full attention. Yes? So now the first things first would be what? Should we chop down the trees? All of us would take that left hand and say no. Yeah, should we chop down the trees? One right hand went up. So it's all left. Yes. Should we dump all the garbage and the sewage into freshwater bodies? It's going to be no. Should we actually take over and build that wind turbine, a railway station, NIOT, and put one road from Pallavaram to Thorepakam, do all of this into Pallikarna, and also then go add garbage there? We'll say no. See, we know the problems, right? And at CIC, we've discussed this at length. And what we often discuss is this. Whenever there's a flood, or whenever there's this drought, there's always this case, right? Common sense and sensationalism. Sensationalism sells. Common sense is somewhere deep down there. And the whole idea of doing these sessions, or inviting people like Professor Vishwanath all the way from Bangalore, and city to city, the story is the same, right? The wells are being dumped with garbage, lakes are being dumped with sewage, and the lakes are holding sewage through the year, that when the rainfall happens, there's no place for the fresh water to go. And then comes these very interesting, modern, sophisticated, arrogant questions that are asked, which are, now that the rains have happened, and the floods have actually cleaned Kuvam, Adyar, and Kosastalayar, so that means the rivers are clean now. Take a sponge, for example. And on that sponge, you keep pouring ink on a daily basis. And suddenly, one fine day, you decide you'll pour a glass of water just on the top. And then you think, oh, okay, superficially, it's clean now. And this you still have to explain to a larger audience, and somehow in an educated, well-earning, the healthcare capital of India, the education capital of India, all these tags go around. And I'm so sorry, but Chennai is probably the water capital of India. Yes, you go to Bangalore, Bhopal, they're all going to tell you they're city of lakes. Bring them to Chennai and give them an opportunity to speak and tell them, no sir, sorry, Chennai is the city of lakes. I'll tell you why. From these names I gave you, 200 acres plus, you can actually have close to 460 water bodies. 200 acres plus water bodies, which are almost 460 plus. Small ponds, wherever you're from. You could be from Mangadu, you could be from Kundratur, you could be from Mylapore, you could be from Tiruvanmiyur. Just think, isn't there a pond near your house? There is one. Yes. And we also have what we call as lake view apartments on the lakes without those lakes to be viewed anymore. So technically, we have a tennis stadium, I'm being told, on the long tank, right? So it's not like we didn't know. And it's simple logic. Westwardly, the winds go, and then it rains, and water runs towards the eastwardly ocean, which is the deepest pocket. And when that happens, our ancestors, forefathers, foremothers, they didn't have electricity or the motor pumps which could pump water out. So what did they do? The oxbow lake systems, right? And ரொம்ப simple. ஒரு மண் கரை கட்டிட்டு தண்ணியை ஏற விட்டு ஏறின்னாங்க. களிமண்ணில் அது தாங்கி நின்னதுனால தாங்கல்னாங்க, விவசாயத்துக்கு யூஸ் பண்ணதுனால கழனின்னாங்க, குட்டைன்னாங்க, குளம்னாங்க. ஸோ ஆல் டிஃப்ரெண்ட் கேரக்டரைசேஷன் and classification so that there was water available through the year. The very interesting thing that we'll also get to notice is the oxbow system. The earthen embankment is sitting like this and water fills up, right? And then water leaves. It's an interconnected system. Water goes from one lake to the other to the other. Interesting thing that happens, water actually spreads to the far end, and that's what we call as foreshore, before shore. The bund is called the offshore and this is before shore, so foreshore. In the foreshore the water used to rise up, and what would the farmer do? As long as the land had moisture, he would cultivate, and he would cultivate based on the quantum of water that's available, the moisture that's available, the soil pattern that has changed. So the farmer keeps going into the lake as the lake recedes, and the farmer harvests and keeps receding in time for the monsoon, where he's tilled the soil, he's done everything, and the lake is now prepared again to hold water. So this is the common knowledge. There was no legal boundary. So we have what we wish to call as the compound mindset, right? This is my compound, so all the water ground below, somehow we think our compound goes deep down there until the metro comes and collapses it. That's when we realize, no, compound is only 2 feet down. Yes, all the groundwater we believe below my house is mine. Yes, which is not the logic. And how my septic tank is next to somebody's bore well, that also is beyond logic. Yes, so we don't understand that the lake actually has water moves from a higher elevation to a lower depression. Simple logic done, right? And what did we do? We moved our urban spaces into these lakes by putting structures, by actually altering these canal systems, by bringing in a legal pattern which said, this belongs to you, this belongs to you, but nobody spoke about how that water body belongs to anybody. Tirunelveli, and you all think Tamarabharani is the only story that one can actually spot. There is a beautiful story from Tirunelveli called Palapada Odai. Yes, and if you're wondering why the name Palapada Odai, so, and it's just not Palapada Odai, it has a longer name. Pullayai போட்டு பலாப்பழம் எடுத்த ஓடை, that became பலாப்பழ ஓடை. Yeah, why such a weird name? If people in this audience who love the word weird, you're thinking why this name? Then we went around digging and we found out there once was such a good flow of water, and the jackfruit tree close by kept dropping jackfruits into the, because of the wind. There was a lady who was holding her baby and walking along the canal, and she was so enticed by the jackfruit that at one point she, in the effort to pick up a jackfruit, dropped her child, and she was happy holding the jackfruit. We don't know how true this is, what myth it is, but this odai still exists. Yes, if you're feeling really bad for the child, don't worry, it's generations ago. Now come to reality. Now this Palapada odai is only sewage. Yes, it's only garbage. And this is right next to the collectorate in Tirunelveli. And then if you're thinking, how bad is this governance and what, whichever party comes, right, end of day, somehow civic sense is something very difficult to achieve. The Devnahalli Lake, where we've done our bit, they've done their bit, which is just outside the Bangalore airport. It's a beautiful fort, Tipu Sultan, and a lot of history. Yes, you'll not believe how it's a drinker's paradise, right? Every water body is, and wonderful. It's your personal choice. You're enjoying a beverage. But why leave those bottles there? Why leave all the trash there? Or sensitive subjects. You really think it's easy in this country to, even when you're giving examples, I have to frame up examples from 5 different religions for the minimum least, so that nobody is hurt, right? And if you're giving an example from this religion, you have to counter it with another religion so that nobody is hurt. End of day, science and logic takes a beating majorly. Why go dump religious waste in a water body? And we've seen this. ஆடி பெருக்க விட ஒரு பெரிய வாட்டர் செலிப்ரேஷன் உலகத்திலே ஒன்றுமே இருக்கவே முடியாது. World Water Day is March 22nd, okay? And UN gives you a theme and everything. It would be fresh water, that water, this water, and more. Adi Perukku happens to be a time when the river Kaveri is celebrated. Her flow is celebrated. The farmers worship this water body. And when we went there and when we tried witnessing this celebration, it is appalling how a large population could just throw garbage. Where is the awareness building? And we try to go to schools, we try to go to colleges, sessions like these. Problem, we all know. Solution, we all know. But who's participating in the solution is the question. In this audience, I've invited a few field warriors who are here, And if you quickly can just raise your hand, if you're a field warrior, if you're Atish, if you're Sunil, if you just raise your hand, yes, haath uta do aap, please. Yes, these are people, if you're Yukesh, if you're Sri Krishna, and I'm telling you, you're field warriors. Or if you've even closed the tap at home today, you're a field water warrior, raise your hand, yes? So there, brilliant. My request is, end of this session, talk to each other. Go ask Atish how difficult it is to revive a lake. We'll go try digging up a lake to get that embankment done. In the night, somebody will come, steal the battery in the vehicle and run off. And you thought that's the least of my problems? No. There will be legal boundaries to this water body, and there are people cremated inside lakes. We're not mocking it, but we're saying these are field realities, yes? And you'll have to dig around those graves. There is a huge dearth for, there's a gap between science, logic, and reality in this country. And we, as a collective, using platforms like CIC, should repeatedly, without hurting anybody's sentiments, talk about the need for conservation. And we should never hesitate. See, all comments are not directed towards Mr. Siddaramaiah, Mr. Stalin, or Mr. Modi, right? We're just asking our government, look, why is my Adayar like this? What do you want me to do? I will participate. That we are not asking, and thus it becomes difficult. And for those who are involved in doing all of it, it's so lonely. It's really lonely that, you'll have to go knock around schools, colleges. Who is bad? Nobody is bad. Everybody wants clean water. The statistic social experiment I was talking about, when was the last time you swam in a lake in Chennai? When was the last time you thought of surfing in the ocean here? Kovalam has a beautiful thing, yeah? When was the last time you could go into one of those temple tanks? Let's assume that it being a religious structure would be the purest of purest cleanliness maintained. When was the last time in that 40 degrees Celsius heat you could go drink water from it? All of this is something which we're being denied, right? Avayar, நம்ம எல்லாருக்குமே தெரியும். For those who don't speak Tamil, I'll translate, don't worry. She's a literary giant and a woman giant in the Tamil literature field who's written a lot of things. When you next time go from Chennai towards Trichy, and please go on the GST road, don't go via Pondi, then ask me where is this place. When you go via GST road, after Dindivanam, there's a place called Tenpasiyar, yes? And the reason why this village gets its name, we're again talking to people, why the name, why the name, why the name? Romba simple. Avayar வந்து திருக்கோவிலூர்ல இருந்து கிளம்பி she's walking wherever she's going different kingdom, one kingdom after the other, and apparently she found a well which is close to a large lake, and she was really hungry. There was no food. She drinks a lot of water. The water fills her stomach. That the water was so delicious that she forgot food and she just consumed so much water that her hunger sufficed. So பசியார தண்ணி குடிச்சதுனால, தென்பெண்ணையார் பக்கத்தில் இருக்கிறதுனால தென் பசையார்னு அந்த ஊருக்கு ஔவையார் வந்து பேர் வச்சுட்டு போனாங்களாம். இன்றைக்கி அந்த பேரோட அந்த ஊர் அங்கே இருக்குது. இந்த வாட்டர் ஸ்டோரியெல்லாம் எடுத்து அங்கே இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு 4 ஸ்கூல். Why that mandapam in Pondicherry? It has a story. It's a water story. It's Ai Mandapam. Yes, this lady actually stands up to her rights against the Vijayanagara dynasty. Courtesans, the king just worships, and then a whole lot of things happen. Forget all that, right? Where her house stood, she dug a pond, and that pond exists even today. Kalingarayan story, the Bangar Doddi story, the step wells of Gujarat, Rajasthan, or the well story, which I'm not even going to get into here. Professor Vishwanath would present it much elaborately than me, right? So all this, it's not like we as a population don't know how to handle water. We knew it, right? And we actually know it to the extent that we pass that Bisleri bottle one after the other and share water. That's how good people we are, right? Now the whole point is, where is our volunteering attitude, or where is our energy towards conservation of what is left? And that, in your own skill set, I'll tell you why we accept this invitation and come to platforms like this. Maybe one person in this crowd would come back and tell me, look, I have good camera skills. Tell me where these stories are. I'll come with you. I'll volunteer. Let's document this. Or one of you is going to come and tell me, actually, this gentleman and I were talking. You would have seen I stood up and we spoke. And we've already restored a pond. Yes, they actually have a collective through which they funded, and we revived the pond, Omakulam, near Madhavaram. You'll not believe this was complete garbage. If you're all registered members, I will actually send the before-after image through sir, and maybe if there's any emailer, they'll send it to you. It was complete garbage. You'll not believe we removed 360 tons of non-degradable trash from a 2-acre plot. It was sitting there. And save all those exasperation, I'll tell you why. And that garbage is now safely sitting at Kodungayur, so don't worry, we have saved it, yes? So now this particular 2-acre plot becomes a water body. Year, after all the monsoons, you still keep testing the water. It still has legacy residues. Battery, dead pig, a diaper, sanitary pad, shampoo sachet. Why live like this is the question. And the easiest option would be, okay, let's just go off to Canada, Australia, US, UK. Maybe yes, that's personal choice. Nobody can comment on any of that. But what about here? And how are we going to correct this? How did we go from being Kalingarayan to Bangarududdi to what we are today? Yes, that's the question, and that's what we're trying to find an answer. I'm not here as an expert or anything. Yes, I'm simply here as an individual, or even your self-reflection, throwing few questions at you, asking you, why aren't you volunteering with us? Why aren't you with CIC? And why aren't you out there in the field in your capacity? Not that at 1 o'clock in the heat, you have to come, stand there, hold a placard. No, all that doesn't help. Or definitely not run that marathon, which on an early morning flight on Sunday, there are people running around. Definitely no, that's not what we're asking. Why aren't we at that lake? Why aren't we at that pond? Why aren't we actually at that beach? Yes, 5 tons of garbage. And if you're still wondering why they're leaving if they're bored, focus your attention on me. Yes, I'm still talking about water, and that's exactly where we are lost. 5 tons of garbage on a daily basis on the Marina Beach alone, between all the cremated leaders and all the way up to the lighthouse. That's the distance I'm talking. We've put an incinerator there, and everything from contraceptives to needles to you think of it, it's all there. Why is this attitude, and how are we going to change it? This is something which you will have to definitely ask yourself, and maybe then get back to CIC and tell them, look, this is how I want to volunteer. This is my skill. My skill is, I know a bunch of lawyers, let's do something. My skill is, I'm actually connected to the political leaders, let's do this. My skill is, I actually know permaculture, we can do wonders. My skill is, I actually can study soil for you. Yes, my skill is, my husband is actually an English professor, she already offered me that, and he can write for you. Yes, my skill is, I know these schools, go do the storytelling in those schools, get those volunteers. My skill is, I can just give you positive vibes. That's what Sujata Patnaik ji is doing. She actually keeps blessing us, gives us, and in Facebook, we actually have one person who's always following our story, sharing it. And you'll believe what big difference does it make. It gives confidence to all these young people who are out there in the heat when it's 40, when it's 43, and they're working on it. That one Sujata Patnaik support actually means a lot. And it's a collective effort towards water conservation, which is what is needed. And if you're thinking, Arun, I thought you'll talk about when 15 centimeters rainfall happens at 8 mm of evaporation, this is the kind of channel width it was there, where are all the technical details? What are we going to do with the technical details? Are you going to change your mind and then tomorrow all of you forego everything in life and come sit in a pond? Definitely no. I'm only here to make a simple emotional plea. Why aren't you there volunteering with us? It's a request. And why aren't you bringing more people to volunteer with us? It's a request. And it's a beautiful journey. Sabri, maybe with your support, we're going to take you to Mannachanallur. How many of you from Trichy? Anybody from Trichy there? One? Yes, we actually revived a step well in Alwar, Rajasthan called the Musi Rani Sagar. And what a beautiful system. Out of nowhere we found this step well, of course because of a CSR partner, right? Aravallis happen to be the world's oldest tabletop mountain. And at exactly where in that range, where 2 hills crisscross and meet, it creates a condensation filament in that region. So in that heat pocket, in that heat island, you actually have this cloud bearing, and because of the density, in that crevice rainfall happens. You should be there. You should be there to see what I'm describing. The rocks on one side of the hill would so beautifully be cut simply by wind, only wind, nothing else. And there would be the other side of the rock which would have a cascade system on it simply by water. And this water was collected in a well, yes, called Ishwar Kund, and then it would run through a canal and it will come down to what is called as a Hathi Kund. And this Hathi Kund, if you thought was some kind of a storage tank, no, it's a sedimentary pit where all the mountain silt will settle and the water would rise up and then go into a 3-7 pedestal steps. And if you're thinking they dug all this in the ground, it's on the hill slope. And they've dug this step well into that inclination, and they've gone deep. So when they first took me, it's a beautiful building, and now not now. It was a collectorate back then. The collectorate has now moved to another building, and they took us, and we had to reach the 7th floor of the building, and then there was the well. Yes, not in the ground floor, not in the first floor, 7th floor, which technically means the hill is like this. The palace is protruding into that hill, and then on the 7th floor is this step well. I became so jealous of Rajasthan, Gujarat, the Adalaj, the Ambapur, Rani Ki Vav. I'm like, where are step wells in my... I have Marundishwar, I have all this, yes, beautiful, but where are the step wells? Bam, out of nowhere came this. Watch this, and then I'll continue.
Symbols give a whole new identity to the otherwise common. Symbols unite, they divide. Symbols trend, or they get lost in the mists of time. Mankind's nature observation, the eventful recreation of sights in the form of art, led to the evolution of symbols. With a deep meaning and sometimes hidden ideas, these symbols act as an emblem to cohere a wide population in the name of religion, politics, or New Age human ideologies. Some revered symbols in one part of the world took a negative connotation elsewhere based on those who made it theirs. In a life that is all about black and white, love and hate, hot and cold, here is a water story that symbolizes conservation. EFI's Hydrostan takes you to central Tamil Nadu in India in search of the swastik step well. Denotes well-being, and the sun's motion is said to be captured along its axis. That is why the swastik is an auspicious sign of prosperity according to the Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain theology. Here at Tiruvallarai, near Tiruchirappalli, the swastik is a firmly fit sign on the ground as an ancient step well. India is known for her unique water conservation structures. This swastik step well just reiterates that. Creating a water conservation structure in a parched land parcel is a visionary thought, ensuring that it is artistically done and aesthetically pleasing is proof of evolutionary maturity in a civilization. The Tiruvallarai swastik step well was built by the visionary Kamban Arayan, who was the Ajnanapati or the Anati in the Pallava kingdom, an executor of royal orders. This was established during the Pallava rule of Danti Varman, one of the long-standing Pallava monarchs. Kamban Arayan named the step well as Marpudagu Kenaru after one of the royal titles enjoyed by the king Danti Varman. A step well is a deep pocket subsurface dugout capable of storing groundwater, especially those fed by aquifers influenced by the underground movement. The unique features of the Marpudagu Kinaru is that it enjoys a multi-directional entry, a gradual descent, and a firm stonework in its periphery that holds the well in place, thereby creating a deep, stable reservoir. One of the oldest man-made structures in the world, the Pundarikakshan temple would mesmerize you as one enters this calm village of Tiruvallarai. Older than the Srirangam temple, with work carried on by multiple rulers, this mega structure is by itself a forgotten masterpiece. Where does the swastik step well stand a chance of recognition if this enormous temple is not on that list? Despite being away from the limelight, both the temple complex and the swastik step well are well known in more ways than one. A unique conservation lesson from the past an inspiring architectural lesson for the future, and a well-established message of perseverance for excellence is what one would take upon visiting this calm little village. This swastik here is a well being lost in time, now ready to arise from the depths to inspire for prosperity.
இருந்து வர்றவங்களுக்கு இது ஒரு அதிசயமான கிணறு தான். இங்கேருந்தெல்லாம் வந்திருக்காங்க. ராமேஸ்வரம் ஏன் அன்னைக்கு கூட ஜெர்மனிலேருந்து கூட ஆள் வந்திருந்தாங்க.
4 பக்கம் படிக்கட்டு இறங்கி ஏறி அது ஒரு வித்தியாசமாக இருக்கா. அதான் ஸ்வஸ்தி குளம்ங்கிறதால ஒரு வித்தியாசமாக இருக்கிறதால எல்லாருமே வருஷம் வருவோம்.
மனசில் உள்ள கவலைகளை எல்லாமே மறந்துடுவோம். அதை விட்டு வெளியே வரதுக்கு மனசு வராது. எல்லாம் அந்த மாதிரி அவ்வளோ அற்புதமாக இருக்கும். உள்ள அந்த மன்னர் கட்டி வச்ச ஒன்றும் அவ்வளோ அருமையாக இருக்கும்.
Today when you go back home, when you have time, Kannadiyan Kalvai, this is near Tirunelveli. Definitely, please, if you have the interest, find this story. Kannadiyan Kalvai. If it's very difficult, just go to YouTube, find Environmentalist Foundation of India. You have all these stories. Yeah, Kannadiyan Kalvai is story number 1. Story number 2 is Kalingarayan Canal. Kalingarayan Canal. Story number 3 is from near Mysore, the Bangaradoddi story. Yes. And story number 4 should definitely be the Ai story from Pondicherry. Yes. Look for these stories and somehow spread, share these stories. I'll tell you why. When there is pride, we strongly believe it's easier to protect. This very step, well, you'll actually be a little taken aback if I tell you this. On that neat stonework they've done, it was plastered with cement in the name of restoration. Then some historian had to point it out because they have a lot of engravings and more. Then with a court intervention, all that cement was brought down. Maybe with more of us getting involved, with more of us just participating, protecting all of this will become easier. Pallikarnai getting flooded, Perambur getting flooded, or that one MTC bus stuck in Vyasarpadi subway year on year, we all know this, yes? And how we're going to fix all of this? Yes, we have to and we will, together, you, me, the government, all of us together, yes. Change in lifestyle, the kind of products that we use, the kind of water that enters your home, and what is the quality of water that leaves your home, and how much of water are you harvesting. Then comes the other few questions. What is the amount of trash? If you can do this one activity, a waste audit, right? How much garbage are you generating? Don't let any garbage leave your home for just 1 week. Yes, then you'll realize what we're contributing. We're all trying this. Don't think it's preachy where we're trying to put you versus me. No, definitely no. These are challenges we are facing on field, and it's a humble appeal. Can we all collectively start talking, doing these things so that it becomes easier to do these things on field? When we do it, the schools where you're going to introduce me are going to do it. The politicians you're going to introduce me are going to listen to us. The media is going to talk about this, not about me, not about you, but about this effort. And then at CIC, month on month, we actually set targets as members and we all go towards achieving a few things. That's how life is going to change. Whether it's all going to become rosy at the end of all of this in 10 years, I don't know. It's utopian. But at least we should try. Because that's how we've been doing this. 460 water bodies could be revived in its own ways. Only because of a lot of volunteers, a lot of CSR, government, collaboration is the key. This one man, one woman heroism and all doesn't work. Together we have to work for water conservation. Yes, this is another video which we're not going to play for the interest of time. I thank you and the larger CIC team for giving us this opportunity, and to every single one of you for patiently listening. When you leave today, yes, it's going to be a little darker than how it was when you came, but when you turn left, yes, and you'll go all the way to, I don't even know the hospital's name now, it's changed so many times, after the bridge. So on the left and the right, you will find the birds of Chennai painted and kept. Drive slow, yes, and try to actually take notice of at least a few bird names, right? And think one of them is Dhoni, one of them is whoever you like, with whom you would love a selfie. Click and put it out. Yes, பாம்பு தாரான்னு ஒரு பேர்டு இருக்கு. எஸ், பாம்பு தாராவோட இங்கிலீஷ் பேர் என்னன்னு தேடி பாருங்க. And Chennai has a lot of பாம்பு தாராஸ். Yes, maybe the tara that we should speak more about as Chennai is பாம்பு தாரா, and you know the other one which I don't want to mention for the right reasons. Yes, இதே மாதிரி யோசிச்சிங்கன்னா இங்கே இருக்கக்கூடிய ஏரி, குளம், குட்டை, மரம், செடி, கொடி, தவளை, பாம்பு, நண்டு எவ்வளவோ இருக்குது. And you know, one of our turtles is called Chitra indica. Yes, and if you had a physics teacher called Chitra, actually tell her, ma'am, I'm so proud of you. Look, there's a turtle named after you. Pull it out, put it out. Yes, we should. And my request as CIC, maybe in every emailer that goes, at the bottom of it, yes, my young colleague Arul Vani will be very happy if I mention this here. At the bottom of that emailer, if you can just keep repeating this throughout this year, say no to balloons. It's not like we can't live without balloons, yes. 19 sea turtles dead and washed ashore. Autopsy, 7 sea turtles had balloon debris in its stomach. Yes. Yesterday, if you know somebody, again, it's not a personal remark on anybody, okay? Bala Vidya Mandir in Adayar actually celebrated some nice day yesterday. They had a beautiful balloon arch. I really wanted to stop and go request them. I'm sure they will listen. I'm sure the next time they will not use it. If you know anybody in BVM, actually ask them. Today's date is what, 22nd? On the 21st, did you have a balloon arch outside your gate? If so, can you please not do it next time? The reason being, sea turtles are dying. And if you see Purvika mobiles or anybody having this, just politely tell them, next time no to balloons. Christmas, Diwali, Teacher's Day, birthday. And if you're wondering, where is water in this, Arun? There's a lot of balloon in the water. That's why I have to talk about balloons in a session about water. Plastic spoon, plastic fork, styrofoam cups. These are garbage that we keep cleaning day in and day out. And the microplastic penetration, endless story. Yes, endless story. And of course, kidney, heart, liver, cancer, you relate, you connect the dots, you do the story. You know all of this. Yes? And all these things, something which we all together can work and get it done. And the excitement with which I'm speaking here, because we're going to get into a brainstorming discussion and identify a water body or an afforestation site where we're all going to work together. Yes, and maybe you'll all be there. Kannadiyan Kalvai, Kalingirayan, Bangaradoddi, and Ayi Ammayar from Pondicherry. Don't forget these names. And in Chennai, you don't even have to go far. There is a lake, there is a pond, there is a stream, there is a canal, there is an ocean or there's an estuary. There is a water story that you can beautifully tell. Yes, and let your everyday morning, good morning WhatsApp message be about a water story from Chennai. And if you don't know where to look for it, go to YouTube, just search for EFI. We have at least 500 of these stories. Please pass it on. Let's get more people to volunteer. Thank you for organizing this. And thank you, sir, for coming, for being such an inspiration. I'm here to listen to you rather than to speak. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Arun talks about water with such passion, and he's from Chennai, Tamil Nadu, but he's working all over India. I just wanted to share some experience that I bring from a state and a city with whom you from Tamil Nadu and from Chennai have a rivalry, let us say, about a particular form, a river and water. And rivalry comes from the word river, actually. So rivalry starts with the word river. And so I would like to bring the perspective of this city of mine, as well as the land around it, and the people involved in the solution-making space, so that we can learn from each other. As much as I learn from what's being done here by EFI and others, I would like to share some of my experience to see whether we can have some common solutions in the future. So I call it the past, present, and future of the city, and I show you a well there and a small house. Yesterday was June 21st, summer equinox, the longest day. Many years back, 240 BC, the chief librarian of Alexandria, called Eratosthenes, saw that in a well in a place called Syene, there was no shadow at 12 o'clock yesterday. But in Alexandria, a pillar had a shadow with an angle. He measured the distance between that pillar to the well and calculated the circumference of the earth. So the well not only provides water, it does help us in geography and measuring circumferences of earth. And so therefore I pay my homage to the well, which actually gave birth to a city, right? Because it was the lakes and the wells which actually provided water for civilization to appear in a part of the world where there are no rivers. Next one, please. And especially for historians, not something new, but perhaps ascribed to Joe Santayana, those who do not learn from history are condemned to repeat it, followed by the only thing we learn from history is that we do not learn from history. That's Hegel, but we'll come to that. One of the ways that I try and understand water in India, because water is global, national, but local, and all three spaces are occupied at the same time. That's the beauty of water. And with India, you'll see that lesson in geography we study in the 6th and 7th standards of the rising of the Himalayas, one of the youngest mountains in the world, still continuing to rise, caused the monsoon winds to occur and the rains to fall. And India is characterized by the special thing, not Tamil Nadu, not this particular part of the world, but June 1st to September 30th, these 4 months of the monsoon, we have to hold on for the rest of the 8 months. That's our water challenge. And where do we hold on to the water? We hold on to the water in our glaciers, springs, old growth forests, soil, aquifers, lakes, rivers, ponds, streams, wetlands. That's where we hold on to it. And then we have to make to do with whatever nature gives us in that particular year, drought or flood. We have to hold on to it. And that's what people have responded to locally with their own creations, the very number of names that have been taken for water bodies, right? So we call it Kere, Kunte, Katte, and so many names we have for small water bodies where we're holding on to the water for agriculture, for cattle, and for other forms of livelihood, including domestic water supply for the rest of the year. So this particular phenomenon of the Himalayas, if I can go to the next slide, created the sinking of the plateau which you see in blue, the Indo-Gangetic plain and the Indus plain, the most fertile part of the globe. The waters came from the monsoons, they brought with them silt from the lower Shivaliks, from the Himalayas, deposited it in those two particular zones, created hundreds of feet of good clay soil and aquifers, and the rivers and streams made sure that the soils could be irrigated. And so therefore, when you go to the next slide, you'll see the population density of the world. No wonder we are the world's most populated nation. We've overtaken China. That's India there. Look at the kind of densities that you see all across. Next one. And within India, you'll see that the Indo-Gangetic plain supports 600 million people. The world's densest place, made possible by nature, made possible by an accident of geology, but also made possible by human endeavor in making sure that that water was taken care of and agriculture was taken into practice and mastered so that we could get this kind of densities, right? So this is something that we need to remember. Next one. Another interesting fact about India, look at the landmass of the other two countries which I've picked, which are huge countries in terms of geographical size. USA and China are roughly 3 times the size of India in geographical area. But look at the arable area being the cultivable area. And there, we are very close to both USA and China. So for the total area of a country, we have the largest arable area, which means we can support a large population through agriculture base, but which also means that our environmental space, the forest space, the scrubland space, the grassland space is under threat because of this blessing of nature. Something that we have to realize and we have to work with. Next, please. And the monsoon is everything. For you, the northeast monsoon, but for the rest of India, the southwest monsoon, like I said, June 1st, September 30th, hold on to it in whatever form you can. And that's what you have to make to do with. Next. And come to the river basin. One of our challenges in the Indian context, as where we work, is we fight over the waters of the river. We don't fight to protect the forests of the river, the sand in the river, the lakes and ponds, the grasslands in the catchment and the river basin. We don't fight over that to protect it so that the water flows freely and more abundantly. But we will take our dispute from water tribunals to the Supreme Court to say, okay, you take this much, we take this much. Fighting over allocation, not responsibilities. Right? We fight over rights, not responsibilities. And only if we turn the table and we fight over responsibilities will we find solutions. Otherwise, this fight will happen every year. Next, please. And for us, it's very interesting because we're sitting on a ridge line of the Kaveri. The river is 100 kilometers away from us, 300 meters below the city. We draw 1,450 million liters per day from the Kaveri itself. Yeah? It's a number that one needs to keep in mind. Many a time, a city is shown to be a villain, taking away water from rural areas, taking away water from agriculture, being a blip on the body politic, which is very bad, right? And then it not only takes away resources, but it also pollutes downstream. Can we turn that story around? And when you look at the story in the Karnataka context, what we find is, of the 284.75 TMC feet, 1,000 million cubic feet, that number, the city of Bangalore only takes 6.67% of the water of Karnataka's allocation. And with that water, It supports nearly 50% of Karnataka's population in the Kaveri Basin, not 40%, 50%. And it supports 60 to 70% of the GDP of the state. So it's this little water from the Kaveri which is supporting all the livelihoods, the life of people who are in the city, but also the economy of the state. Yeah? So that's something that we need to remember. And I would argue that the city is the most efficient user of water. The city has also another characteristic. The water we use comes back to nature. I have a bath, I wash dishes, I wash my clothes, all of it comes back as used water. Right now we have the technologies to clean up that used water, if we so choose to, return it back to nature in the same quantity and quality with which we took from it. So there's a net zero loss to nature. And actually, we can do that if we pay the true ecological price for water and if we are mindful about the water. If we want to care about water and if we want to pay the true price for water, there will be no pollution at all. That's the mind, that's the community spirit that we have to create. That's the institutional push we'll have to force on our governments to do that, because we all deserve good clean waters. We all want good clean waters everywhere. And we all have to have those clean waters for the future generations to come to, right? So that's what we need to focus on. And so one of the figures there at the last was actually that we are returning more water from the city than what we are taking from the river. You'll ask why? Because the city adds 600 million liters of groundwater every day. And that groundwater is added to the Kaveri water. It becomes what is called wastewater or used water, and that is then shipped out from the city. If not collected and treated as polluting waters, but as I will show you, if the city imagines itself as a water and fertilizer factory, these waters can support the livelihoods of thousands of farmers and millions of acres of agricultural land. Next one. And this is the greater Bangalore that we worry about. Many a time we obsess about the small city and say, oh, what do we do with the 14.5 million people? But the greater area, which is 8,800 square kilometers, is the cause for concern, because if we don't plan for that now, we'll be in problem very soon in the immediate near future, as we were in problems last year. And so groundwater is what characterizes India as being different from the rest of the world. India is the largest user of groundwater in the world. We use 250 cubic kilometers of groundwater annually. China and the USA together do not use as much groundwater as India does. This is our characteristic. And where is groundwater fed from? It has to be rainwater and surface water which feeds the aquifers. And if we don't keep groundwaters alive, if we don't keep our wells and bore wells alive, we are in big trouble, as we find out in many places, right? So this is the famous photograph by Raghurai, which is in the heart of Delhi, Agrasen Ki Baudi, the next one. And that's how it looks like now. Still good place for selfies and Instagram. The skeleton remains, the soul has gone. And we don't ask ourselves, where did the water go? And we don't ask ourselves, can we bring the water back? We don't ask ourselves, will not the well be truly restored when the waters also come back? This is a question we have to ask ourselves. Where did the water go? And where did the water go? The water went because the skyscrapers at the back drew it from tube wells and sent it out. More importantly, metro lines were built below the ground. Those stations, 2-3 stories below the ground, needed to be pumped out of the water, otherwise they would flood, and that meant that the whole aquifer was depleted. In urban areas, all forms of infrastructure, roads, bridges, metros, lines, electricity lines which go below the earth, now will need to talk to water more positively. We cannot go about the way with physical infrastructure as we are going about now without damaging water. Roads have become the cause of floods in Bangalore because roads are now higher than houses. Streets are higher than houses. There's no way the water which falls on the house can go out. So they're causing floods to, not floods, waterlogging at many, many places. So infrastructure talking to groundwater and surface water is crucial for us as urban planners, as architects, as engineers, as people who are dealing with infrastructure. Next, please. Because for my city, the rocks in Lal Bagh, if any of you have been to Bangalore, Lal Bagh is one of the most beautiful gardens there, is 3,400 million years old. That's the history that we have. a geological history which is 3,400 million years. That rise of the rocks to 920 meters above sea level gave us the temperature and the climate which has attracted educational institutions and factories, which has attracted the population that the city has. It owes itself to a geological accident. That's the history that's driving geology, which is driving the present urbanization. Next. Next, please. The city is a density and scale disruptor. In a village context, in an agricultural context, we'll go to the next one. What happens is that you don't have the density of population which can consume a lot of water, but also release a lot of wastewater. But we must remember the past two, and I was discussing, Mr. Pradeep was just mentioning that famines and droughts have had a tremendous impact on Indian society and history, including our city. The Great Famine of 1876, 77, 78, which was all across South India, killed 90,000 people in the city of Bangalore. 12.5 lakh people in the old Mysore kingdom. 1/4 of the Mysore kingdom was eliminated, died. Many cattle died. Much distress was caused. Left a severe imprint on the city, and the local tanks and lakes were not able to support a population of 1.5 lakhs. Now we are 14.5 million. The local is crucial and critical. The local is a supplement, but we are now at a scale and density where we have to take responsibility at a river basin scale. We should not simply obsess about our lakes and ponds. We should obsess about the river Kaveri itself. And the obligation of the city of Bangalore, as with Chennai, as with Hyderabad, is to Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri, and these larger rivers. The city should start to think about those rivers, because without those rivers, they're dead. As much as you care about your local lakes, ponds, and wetlands, care about the river. Do that simultaneously, because this is the kind of distress that can be caused in an era of non-climate change. Now we are in an era of global warming. What will be the impact of severe droughts and famine is something that we need to think of and prepare and plan for. Next, please. And so therefore, then the city fathers in 1894 took to technology, took to building dams on rivers and bringing water. But what it meant was, now that we are dependent on a river far away, we don't care about our local waters. And actually, we started to pollute it with wastewater and sewage flows because fresh water was coming in larger quantities. This is the tragedy that we were participants to. But this is a 20th century tragedy. It should not be a 21st century tragedy. In the 20th century, water was supply side oriented. Build a dam, pump the water to the city. In the 21st century, we must say that water has an environmental role, has a social role. We need to protect it both locally and outside, and we can't afford pollution. Yeah, next. And so therefore, I come to some of the people who are involved as part of the solution. As Arun was pointing out, there are field warriors, people who work on the ground and actually make the difference. This is a community of manvaddars, people who are digging wells and tanks all across Karnataka. These are the people who dug 36,000 tanks in Karnataka alone. And the wells, thousands of wells. This was a community which moved from Rajasthan, Kashmir, all the way to Tamil Nadu, North Tamil Nadu, Vadera, Ode, different names. And the skill of earth work was with them. Broad shoulders, strong arms, ability to dig from the bottom, haul yourselves up with a rope. Tremendous knowledge and skills. Is it possible to fit that traditional knowledge and livelihoods to solutions which are demanded now? So what we do with the Manvaddas, Ramakrishna, Muniraju, Shankar, all of them, more than 800 of them, we say that we'll dig 1 million wells in Bangalore. 1 million wells to recharge rainwater into the aquifer. If we do that, we will never run out of water. So water security through traditional knowledge and livelihoods, is it a possibility, is something that we need to explore, right? And so therefore, they are doing these jobs now, cleaning up old wells, making sure it's recharged with rainwater, making sure it comes back to life and is reused again. Getting step wells like this restored, right? Now, what we've been able to do to some extent is to persuade large developers of real estate, 200 acres, 220 acres, to make sure that they don't destroy the wells and step wells on their land. This knowledge has now gone into many, many people. Now they reserve those places, now they restore those places, now they recharge the aquifer, and that one step well alone gives 1.1 million liters of water in a 36-hour pumping cycle. So not only is it restoration of heritage, but it's also functionality and water for that entire development of villas. You can live in a Spanish villa or an American villa, but please make sure that the Indian step well is taken care of. If you do that, you can have the best of both worlds, if you're responsible with water, right? So that's something of a message that is coming out. So that's the kind of restoration work that's happening. Traditional lime and mud mortar, next one please. And these people themselves have forgotten some of the skills. The Kalluvaddars who used to work with stone have forgotten the skill of lime and mud mortar because that generation is gone. So can that skill also come back in the restoration process, but as a functional restoration? Like you notice in the well on the right, it's not only restored as a heritage because it's 120-year-old, but it's restored for its water too. The water provided by it keeps alive several families. Next. And there are these stories of these wells. In the north of Bangalore towards the airport, there's a town municipal council of Hunsmarnalli, beautiful old well, 80 feet deep, forgotten because it's not part of the civil engineering design of water supply now. We don't believe in wells. We believe only in dams, reservoirs, and rivers or desalination. But when we cleaned up this well and put a pump there, this well could give 2.5 lakh liters of water in a 12-hour pumping cycle. A tremendous amount of water. So, and it's very good water so that the town municipal council could start to use it and make sure that more people started to get it. So this is some of the things we do. And you were talking about the kachra there. All the Ganesha idols which have been put in, the flowers that have been put in over decades. It took 12 tractor loads of that kind of silt to be cleaned up, and that well now, which is restored in the heart of the city, gives again water for 1,000 families. A well. And none of my water supply storage board utility people believe that a well can do that. So we have to now start to convince our own technical people the capabilities and the necessity to understand aquifers, to understand what recharge is, to understand what shallow aquifer is, and how do we integrate it to the system. Yeah. This is called the Murukola Bhavi, or 3-tap well. And this well, now, when Bangalore was in great distress, as was being portrayed in the media, continued to give water to anybody who came to it, put a bucket, opened the tap, took the water, and took it home. People used to come from 3-4 kilometers just to fill up water from it, the old well in the heart of the city. The next set of people are the fishers. In urban lake restoration, most of the urban imagination seems limited to it as a water body. And there's a danger of something called a middle class capture. You do a lake in a city like Bangalore, quickly the middle class want a fence around it, a jogging track, a walking path, exercise equipment, playground, that's it. The livelihood that it supported over many decades is usually forgotten. Not to blame, not to be critical, but if we remember the livelihoods that fishermen had made out of the lake, and if we integrate it as part of the restoration process, not only will those livelihoods be protected, the fish will be available as protein, but also the fishermen can be involved in the cleaning up of the water hyacinth, the plastic that comes to the lake. This is a strategy that is crucial if we want to maintain the lake on a long-term basis, right? The fishers have to be at the heart of the maintenance of the water body. Because this lake is filled with treated wastewater. It's called Jakkur Lake. Arun would have seen it. Many of you would have seen it in Bangalore. Treated wastewater from a sewage treatment plant comes through a wetland, comes to the lake, keeps the lake full throughout the year. Fish grow in it. Fish are eaten by people, provides proteins and food. The fisher cooperative makes a living out of it. So restoration of water bodies is about livelihoods. Critically about livelihoods and traditional livelihoods. Next, please. And it's then about ecology. Water is first a social good, second an environmental good, and third a physical good. The best water restoration restores all three. It's not just water which is being restored. It's the social good part of it, and it's the ecological good part of it, and the physical nature part of it. If all three can be done simultaneously, that's the best success that we have. Because these folks now are permanent residents of Bangalore. They have an Aadhaar card and they vote in the local elections. Previously, there used to be migrants perhaps coming from North India and perhaps China or perhaps Serbia, but now they prefer Jakkur, right? Because there is food, fish available 365 days a year, and pretty decent weather, and trees to help them nest and roost, right? Next. Then the lake recharges the aquifer, and these wells now are full of water. Mind you, this started off as sewage. It's sewage transformed through livelihoods, through ecological processes to drinking water. And nobody feels it as a yuck factor. Everybody thinks this is well water, and people are happily, psychologically ready to use this, right? This transformation of nature makes it practical. Only thing scientifically, we have to ensure that it meets drinking water quality. Next. And so then we come to the traditional tank system. And some of our work is in the immediate periphery of Bangalore, in villages 70 to 80 kilometers away. We understand the entire system of the tank, which includes the catchment, the feeder channels, the water body, the bund, the sluice gate, the overflow weir, the command area, and the Raj Kalways, which feed the command area, then the overflow canal which feeds the next tank, right? All of these are components of a tank. Many a time in Karnataka, people just go desalt the lake and go away. That's not it. That's just temporary work. So as Arun was mentioning, the names themselves have significance, and that significance has to be understood and protected. Next. So there are 13 parameters. We were talking, sir, about the framework that had to be evolved. What is the measure of success of a tank restoration in a rural context? It should be self-managed and sustainable with a tank user group from the village itself. At least 85% of the traditionally marginalized should be included in the tank. This was a stunning lesson for us. If water comes to a tank in a village, who benefits? And we found out only those who have land in the command area. And how many people have land in the command area? 10% or 15% of the village. What does water in a village mean to the people who do not have land? How do we include the marginalized, the landless, as part of the water success story? These are critical questions to ask. So at least 50% of farmers in tank command area increase production by 35% of baseline, remaining 50% by 25%. 75% of landless tank users increase income by 50%. How? Through small ruminants, goat and sheep, which is provided to landless families, water being reserved for goat and sheep, fodder which is grown in the common areas to be reserved for them, fishing rights for the tank given to self-help groups who do not own land. These are all deliberate policies which have to be designed to make sure that equity and access is guaranteed as part of the tank restoration, that merely restoration of a tank does not increase inequality. Something to remember, right? So water is a social good. I have to keep on reinforcing. It's a social good. Look at it from a social lens. Look at it from an equity justice lens, and you'll find different answers to what restoration actually means. Next, please. And so it goes on. Groundwater has to be increased. There are 13 parameters. But the most important parameter is this, that it should benefit those who do not have land. That's the most critical component. Next, please. And so when we restore tanks, we picked one Gram Panchayat. And when I say we, it means Asha and her group called Arohana, which is a women-led group. And she's in the village itself, as part of the Gram Panchayat itself. And she has restored 11 out of the 21 tanks, and work is happening in the remaining 21 tanks in the whole Gram Panchayat is being restored by her, which includes the feeder channels, the Poshak Kalves, the Raja Kalve, which distributes water in the command area, like so on the right and left. Next. And it's done by women. All the restoration work is done by women as wage labor. They get 500 rupees a day, much more than the Narega work. 100 days of work with CSR fund at 500 rupees. 100 days of work under Narega, 307 to 317 rupees. And 100 days of work in the farmers' fields for 3 crops sometimes, right? So 300 days of work should be assured to women of the village in the village itself. That's the way we have to look at solutions to water supply in an era of agricultural distress. Next. The last idea that I will give to you, and this is the idea of what a city's vision with water should be. I was telling you, now we are trying to pursue at Bangalore that this should be its vision. Water comes from the Kaveri. It makes a pit stop in Bangalore. 4 o'clock, it's pumped from the Kaveri. 6 o'clock, it's at my house. 7 o'clock, I have a bath, which is a rare occurrence. By 8:30, it's at the sewage treatment plant. By 4 o'clock in the evening, it's been pumped to the tank in Kolar. And by 6 o'clock in the evening, it's in the well of the farmer for him to use. In an 18-hour cycle, the water has not stopped in Bangalore for more than 18 hours. Every drop of water which comes from the Kaveri, it's ready for use by farmers, right? This is the plan. Next, please. So the city now has 59 decentralized sewage treatment plants. It used to have 1, 2, or 3. Now it designed sewage treatment plants which are 10 to 15 MLD. Previously, it used to be 270 million liters per day. Now it's 15 to 20 MLD. And it's in the periphery. All of this treated wastewater is booked by politicians, bureaucrats for their constituency. There's no surplus wastewater available. All of them want it for their tanks and lakes. 200 tanks are being filled by treated wastewater from Bangalore now. 500 will be filled in the near future. Next. Next one, please. So this is how the sewage treatment plant looks like. Next. This is the traditional sewage treatment plant. You get raw sewage. The entire effort of the city should now be to make sure that every drop of sewage is collected and reaches the STP. The sewerage network is the weakest link in the system. Next. Then we have the technology right now to actually be able to drink from the STP. That water that you see there, from about 5 STPs in Bangalore, you could go and drink from the treated wastewater. Except for the psychological factor, the water meets BIS 10500, which is the drinking water standard, you could drink it. Now, why take that drinking water and dump it back to sewage lines and channels and lakes? Why not use it for productive purpose, right? That's the question that needs to be asked next. And so the water now pumps up 440 million liters to the district of Kolar, which is climate change affected, perennially drought affected, filling up about 147 tanks and lakes, right? So the distance that you see is from the city, STP, to Kolar, filling tanks rich to valley. Next. That's how the lakes look like. Again, these lakes are filled 365 days a year, 366 every leap year. They restore the microclimate, the microenvironment. They restore biodiversity. They recharge the aquifers. Nobody's allowed to use it directly. It has to recharge the aquifer and then has to be used. Next one, please. And so these kind of filling has reached 200 tanks, and one of them is Devanahalli, where EFI came in. Devanahalli is the town where the airport is located, old Fort 5001, next to it, Sihinir one of the tanks there. Next one, please. That's the tank, the K8210300030. That's a small tank, Sihinir very small tank, but it's called Sweetwater Lake. Next. And that's the soil profile next to the tank. What's important is to understand the lithology, as it's called. What is the ground profile? How much sand, silt, clay, hard rock? Where does it lie? Because this is what is called the aquifer, the sponge which holds water below the ground. Next. And otherwise, Devanahalli was dependent on 110 bore wells, which had gone to a depth of 1,800 feet. That's the depth of bore wells around Bangalore, 1,800 feet, right? Extremely saline water, 2000 TDS as it's called for those who are technically minded, undrinkable without RO. That's what Devanahalli was drinking once in 10 days. Once in 10 days was the water supply. Next. That's Sihinir Kere. That's the fort. That's the farmer. We had first intervened in 2015 to clean it up and make sure that it was protected. Behind the farmer washing his leg is the Sihinir Kere. Next. This is where EFI stepped in and cleaned it up, the lake, desilted it and cleaned it up, right? One of the things, as was being mentioned, it's not about individuals. It's not about organizations. It's about a combination of organizations and government. Everybody has to come in together, dropping their egos. Only then will you find success, which is multipliable. This is what EFI did. This is how it looks like now. This is EFI's work. This is treated wastewater from Bangalore. Sewage water, treated wastewater from Bangalore, filling the lake. Next. That was the lake. That was the well. The well was about to be closed by the municipality, full of kachara, garbage, everything, bottles, everything. They wanted to close it because what's the point of a hole in the ground which is bone dry, right? Next. That's how the well looks like now. The well has tortoise, fish. It provides 250,000 liters of drinking water in a 12-hour pumping cycle. If you stop it for the next 12 hours, it's back to the same level, 250,000. Around it, next. That's how we made it safe and secure with the grill. That's the well water. Next. Crystal clear. It's such a joy to see all the fish and the turtles there. And of course, it was run by the traditional well digging community, and after they finish a well, they all jump in and have a swim because that's a sign of success. No, you must swim in the well waters that you have created yourself. That's Shankar and team which did the work there. Next. Then we did something new for us. We dug shallow filter bore wells, as we call them, just 80 feet wells up to hard rock. Nobody in Bangalore does it. Nobody knows it. These are porous casing wells, which is a technology which farmers there had invented near Devanahalli for their area. So we did that. We put it up. Next one. And we put up a simple state-of-the-art treatment system. 130 micron filtration, activated carbon filter, UV, and chlorination, which is normally put in a swimming pool, right? Next. Now, this water meets drinking water standards, and Devanahalli gets water once in 4 days. The second phase will push in 800 kiloliters per day, and in the third phase, we'll push in 4 million liters per day in the coming 6 months, and hopefully, Devanahalli town will get water every day. This is a model which the city of Bangalore itself is interested in replicating in the 210 lakes we have. And the Karnataka Urban Water Supply and Drainage Board is interested in replicating it in the towns which are being fed by treated wastewater from Bangalore. So the whole idea is, if you're able to demonstrate a pilot, but then give it up to the other organizations to say, what sense do you make of it? Would you want to take it up? Please take it up yourself, it's yours. I don't own any copyright to it, please copy left and right. That's the nature of the beast, right? So this is the power of replication that we think we can put in. That's the checking of the lab results, which was done every week for many months. Now it's 1 year since the plant is running, and we're very confident about the water quality. Next one. And the best thing in an era of climate change was that this water is 1 rupee 54 paisa for 1,000 liters. 1 rupee 54 paisa for 1,000 liters has 1/10 of the energy required for pumping from deep bore wells. That's what is required. So lesser energy, lesser power consumption, lesser carbon emission, and restoration of nature. That's how we need to think about India and its waters. Those 4 months of waters in the monsoon supplemented by the wastewaters that our cities generate, huge chunks of it, all restoring nature, all restoring livelihoods, and all restoring the water cycle. Next. So this is the last slide I want to leave you with, because water is something called a common pool resource. Water is not owned by the state. Water should not be owned by private people. Water should be held in trust by the state on behalf of society and people. There, Elinor Ostrom, the Nobel Prize winning economist, she puts out these ways of addressing issues. Think about institutions. We need to create institutions which are capable of designing, planning, designing, implementing, and monitoring and managing projects of this nature. Social change as problem solving. Urbanization is a reality, we need to deal with it. Embrace designing, implementing, and monitoring and managing projects of this nature. Social change as problem solving. Urbanization is a reality, we need to deal with it. Embrace diversity. One size fits all does not work. But once you choose that solution, be specific. Like if you pick Devnali, be specific to that solution. Listen to people. We listen all the time to well diggers, fishers, agriculturists, farmers, everybody. We listen to everybody all the time. Ideas come from them. Then put it as part of policy. Self-government is possible. Everything changes. It's a dynamic world we occupy. Map power. Power is crucial. Power decides what solutions are going to be tried and tested out. Collective ownership can work if we focus on it. Human beings are part of nature too. Don't design alone for human beings. Design for livelihoods, design for nature, and design for human beings, all three together. All institutions are constructed, so can be constructed differently. No panaceas. Complexity does not mean chaos. Embrace complexity. Everything will change on a day-to-day basis. And we, as society, have to understand the aspirations of people, work with them for positive solutions. Everybody can become part of the solution if she or he chooses to. And solutions are from an individual, community, to the state. Thank you for the patience in listening. Happy.
That was really fascinating. Now we'll open up the conversation to the panelists as well as the audience. I'd request you to just raise your hand. The mics will reach you, and please make it a question, not a speech. So we start with Pradeep.
Sorry, this is more a comment. Your Thiruvallare video is very apt because in that stepwell, there is a 8th century poem, Kandar Kana Olagathir Kadal Seyedin Illade. That's how it starts. It basically says, and it's very apt for the way you can close your sessions when you show that video. It says, those we see today, we can't see tomorrow. Don't fall in love with things in the world. Before you get 3 legs, which means you need a walking stick. Unde lunde, you eat what you need. Give everything else so that the whole world can see it. And in all my study of medieval Tamil Nadu inscriptions, consistently one of the biggest issues is fighting over water rights. Consistently we'll see that the king was never involved. It was always a local decision. Always. So in fact, I think Srivilliputtur, there's a very interesting inscription where a couple of people from the Velala community, who were the farmers, they were brought to task, and there was a criminal case because in summer months, every able-bodied man had to come and work for X number of hours to desilt the canals. And there were some 2 families who didn't do it. So the whole town acted against them. Somewhere in Srivilliputtur, I think there's an inscription. So consistently you will see that water irrigation systems were local issues and never a king's issue. There were just 1 or 2 cases where a king had changed the water rights, and this affected the lower riparian communities. So they went and petitioned. So this was a different community, that was a different community. And this is somewhere near Vaigai River. So the king changed it. He said, yeah, you're right. I can't take this unilateral decision of giving water to, changing the water rights without consulting people who are at the bottom. And Alvarth Nagari, there's an inscription where the upper villages decide on, the upper villages decided on change of water. The lower villages complain because if the water goes down for them, then the boats can't go in and out. So many of these principles were very intuitively followed in those days. Yeah. So just want to share this. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. It was fascinating listening to both of you. But what can a person living high up in an apartment do? I do believe that you should list out what a common man can do, what an association could do, and you should put it on your website or whatever, because otherwise we'll get very charged, we'll leave from here and do nothing. Point number two, many countries have a mandate that every stormwater drain should have a recharge well connected to it. How come we don't have any such thing?
So in Chennai, GCC is putting the stormwater.
It must be something recent.
The last 1.5 years. But also what's happening is the technology to clean the silt or the trash that accumulates in it year on year is a challenge that's now. Also Chennai has introduced the concept of sponge parks now. So within the larger park area, a designated zone is allotted where the stormwater drain is connected to the sponge park. Having seen Chennai, Hosur is doing it now. So it is moving. And to the question as to how we all can volunteer.
I didn't say volunteer. What can we do in our day-to-day lives, in our immediate geography?
No, that's where I'm being a little smart in putting
well,
that idea of
I picked you.
volunteering.
I picked you out.
So maybe like as an apartment, the rainwater harvesting system, the garbage
Yeah,
segregation,
they
all
take
that,
it down
yes.
6 feet and they stop in clay.
Yeah.
It has to go to porous rock or sand. And I do believe these are things you have to give as guidelines.
And what was pointed out as reuse. Certain buildings can actually invest.
The newer ones.
Yes.
Otherwise, you need to have fresh plumbing done. The last question, or rather it's a request, we keep reading about children falling into disused bore wells and getting trapped and dying. I do believe that's disgusting in today's day and age. If you people can highlight that and somehow have those bore wells capped, identified, located, a community effort, it'll help a lot.
A couple of very unfortunate incidents, Thiruvallur, Kallakurichi. After that, Tamil Nadu has been a lot in the forefront.
Tamil Nadu was the first. Angapanayakan Street, some 25 years ago, was the very first. The owner of that house or whatever was from Malaysia. He spent 25 lakhs, but they pulled out only a dead body.
What I'm saying is actually Tamil Nadu is now far ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Almost any defunct borewell is being capped. The district collectors are,
So
if you've noticed in the last 1.5 years, we have not had any such
incidents,
unfortunate incidents. And Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Karnataka, select set of states are going there, yes.
So what we've done as part of the policy bylaw in Bangalore for the apartment resident is to suggest that aerators be used in all taps inside the homes, water efficient devices be mandated. It is law now. So it's law now to do rainwater harvesting. It's law now to have an automatic level controller from the sump so that it doesn't overflow. It's a law now.
Rainwater harvesting is
there.
Here, but the other aerator part is not yet.
Yeah, so it's mandatory now to have a sewage treatment plant if you have a set of 20 apartments or more, and to reuse the water completely within the apartment itself. So all of these are now being codified and are being sort of pushed down. We seem to love the danda more than the persuasion. So
we'll have a question there. Yeah.
First of all, I'm big fans of both of your work. So this is open to both. So what are some key policy interventions that are needed, to integrate sustainable water management from a climate action perspective? Like, what are the key policy interventions that needs to be taken up? And both of your work has been more on the environmental restoration, eco-restoration part. But how can, novel biotechnology innovations like this ecobacteria, which can eat up microplastics, and others like for wastewater treatment inside the polluted lakes, how can they play a role? And just the final question is, what advice would both of you give to entrepreneurs wishing to launch a sustainable startup, which is aimed at preserving the environment? Thank you.
I'll quickly. Question number one, with regards to legislation, recycle and reuse should be point number one, and designated blue reserves to be declared, right? Chembrampakam, Pulal, Pundi, if all these are reservoirs that we have in and around, as rightly pointed, catchment zones, the green zones, which have to be actually designated, no construction, no all that. In fact, Chennai has this to a certain extent, and they're going to revoke it, which maybe is a wrong decision, which they shouldn't, right? So reserves, blue reserves, that's point with regards to legislation, reuse, recycle, and designated blue reserves. The second question that you asked was technology. What can a biotech person do? Yes, we should brainstorm, right? I should tell you my problems, and you should not reinvent the wheel, but rather you should add more spokes to my wheel and make it run faster. So collaboration. And the third question also, it is collaboration. If you are coming in as an entrepreneur, maybe we have the network and the resources. We're not thinking like what you're thinking. We should get together, right? Or you should be a little patient. You look like 19, 20, 21, whatever. Yes, maybe if you're a little patient until you're 25, 26, or meet with all these other people who are already doing this, putting our brains together and collaboration is the key.
Yeah, so I'll just add one small point. During the time of SARS-CoV-2, we worked on something called wastewater epidemiology. So this was crucial for us to understand in the Bangalore context. All the STPs became our signalers as to the new strains that are coming in, and they were able to predict it 13 days in advance, 14 days in advance, right? So that was biotech at work in terms of RT-PCR kits, which were able to do it at 1/100th the cost of what clinical sampling would do, right? Now the next question is, we were lucky we didn't find any SARS-CoV-2 virus which was alive, quote unquote, right? So they were all RNAs or DNAs there. Now the question is, suppose they were alive in the next pandemic, then biotech has to help in terms of sterilizing both the wastewater and the sludge for reuse, right? So that's one element. There are other elements of biotechnology which are being explored. Fluoride and arsenic are found in groundwater tremendously. Can we have fluoride and arsenic chomping bacteria introduced into the aquifers, which can then make it safer, right? So, I mean, you can keep on searching. There are many, many opportunities. The challenge is to make it affordable and workable for you alone as an entrepreneur, right? So the market maturity will take time, as was there, and you have to really find that point where you can do that both as a successful entrepreneur serving society.
Good evening. You are doing a wonderful job, and we are very happy, very proud about your work. I am also a service provider in water and wastewater treatment. I would like to associate myself with you to do a very good service. We got good biotechnology for restoring the lakes, where we can even control the E. coli's, everything, with the help of biotechnology. So that has helped saving further chlorination of the water. So that's a very good thing. And also we are doing in a lot of apartments for our Linux Solo group. We are doing regularly. One problem we are facing is they are not able to dispose the treated water. If we are able to find some place where we can arrange a collection of all this from apartments, that can be used for farming. So that way you can help us in find the right people. I will get myself associated with you at the end of the session. Thank you very much.
The light is too bright. I'm just nodding, thinking you're talking to me. But yes, I 100%, I 100% will. Yes.
Yes.
I'm just going to respond to two of the questions which I've raised, if you don't mind, with my experience in water sector. One is the person who said, what can anybody do as a citizen? One of the things that I notice everywhere is that we take bottle of water and we just drink a little bit and throw it. I think if we can just finish that water, or just take it home and drink it, or use it for whatever purpose you can use it for, that itself is a huge contribution. Treated water cannot be wasted, and I'm saying, youngsters can really make use. Second is, there was a question raised on how can you have startups. I think there is a method by which we have tried in the past is have hackathons. You have a hackathon, you pose a problem, have a hackathon, and then you come up with a lot of problems, and the youngsters can actually come up with solutions, at least pilot projects. But my larger question is, all water supply systems, bigger ones at least, we're not talking about water conservation now, is driven by engineers. If you look at the curriculum of the civil engineers who actually get into water sector, the portion of water in the civil engineering curriculum is just one paper in the third or the fifth semester. Is there anything that can be done to influence that curriculum and using the provisions given in the new education policy to say that you also have to sensitize them to traditional water systems and conservation?
Short answer is yes. Yeah,
Is
absolutely.
anything being done?
But you're the boss. You know better than me on that particular front. But also, just to add on to that point, one of the challenges that institutions now need to be well-rounded. It can't be that individuals themselves will have all the knowledge that is necessary for that. I'll give you an example. The Bangalore Water Supply and Sewerage Board does not have a single hydrogeologist. So groundwater doesn't exist for that institution. It's not that the engineers have to learn hydrogeology, but the department has to well-round itself with a hydrogeological wing so that it becomes well-rounded, right? Similarly, with traditional knowledge, perhaps institutions have to think about multidisciplinarity as the solution to today's problems. And how do those 20th century institutions become 21st century ones? And that's a institutional step. Of course, the education system also has to be modified to make people well-rounded.
Maybe not the larger population is even going to take that curriculum seriously. Institutions that are actually for, like as pointed, climate action, right? There are all these terms now, climate anxiety, climate action, maybe specifically focus on how do we actually tackle a flood in Bangalore, Chennai. NDRF came into existence only after the unfortunate incident in Mumbai, and we've seen now how this country, first responders is now becoming a trend. We need specialized task force related academic modules prepared, and NGOs like us didn't exist this much focused on a particular subject so many years ago. Now there are so many. So I think we are moving in the right direction, and that focus, maybe not the larger national education, but focused customary education is there, and more are growing.
Arun, just to give you a context, Madam is the Vice Chancellor of the Indian Maritime University. Maybe for the coastal, you may like to, meet her later and then, develop some curriculum for
100%.
In your last slide, you had mentioned about this water, ownership of water, not for any individuals, for any company. But there is a proposal to make it for privatization of all water resources. What is your reaction for this both?
That will be disastrous, as has been found out everywhere. That already when groundwater is now almost private, right? Anybody who drills a borewell has ownership rights on it. Water is a human right, basically. So we will have to look at it from a common pool resource perspective as much as possible. Privatization is simply not going to work. That's my belief. Yeah.
I'm Gautam from Tamil Nadu, Dr. Ambedkar Law University, School of Excellence in Law. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to hear about the Neerindri Ammayadu Ulagu, the knowledge of the water. The question here I am going to disseminate or ask to the expert whether we can able to restore or resume the rivers like Ganga, the Buckingham Canal, Adayar, the Kuvam, which were more polluted or most polluted. Some people are saying it is impossible. What you say? It can able to restore the past situation which was in the past. It is able to possible. This is the
About Adayar Kuvam Kasastalayar, I'll tell you. See, simple, right? As rightly pointed during the presentation also by Professor Vishwanath, the city is changing. There's so many more people. There is technology available to treat this water and put it back in. And hydrology, ecology, all to be focused on. It's also a little bit expensive to do it. And add civic sense to it, more civic participation, proper, and one thing which is sustained government action. Not that every 5 years the government's policy changes related to that water body. Maybe if all of this is ironed out, and there were many modules, right, like 13 pointers, 15 pointers, like that, we can actually come up with a nice common minimum agenda to revive Adayar and focus on doing it only for the next 10 years. The CRRT and all here is trying to do just that for Kuvam, Adayar, Kosastalayar, and they're seeing short successes in small patches. And I think with time, we should be able to get there. Even if we don't, it's nothing wrong to be hopeful. I think we should just be hopeful that it will be done. Yes?
Sir, good evening. Yeah, good evening. Thanks for the wonderful presentations. I have a completely different question, I mean, which has not been discussed here at all. We are seeing in Chennai more the use of the desalination plants. Is that a sustainable solution? Because what I hear is that there are a lot of ecological implications to it, because the effluent which comes out is 3 or 4 times more salter than the original water. And secondly, the thought process, I'm not sure where it is, whether to build in more desalination plants or to clean the river system over here and catch the rainwaters, which we are now allowing to flow through easily to the sea with this, the drains which are being formed. Thank you.
I'll tell you, there are these ecological and environmental concerns with desalination, but we'll have to understand as to why desalination is picked easily, right? So it's easy for the Chennai Metro Water Supply and Sewerage Board or whoever it is to float a tender, get a contract, do the project. It's very difficult to do decentralized solutions like rainwater harvesting. They're not in charge. They have to persuade citizens to be able to do it. So the institution itself is uncomfortable with that kind of mandate. And that's global. It's not Chennai alone. Australia found it also. Australia did desalination plants for Sydney, Melbourne, every city there. But what happened in Australia was after the desalination plants were built, the rains came, the dams got filled. Now the desalination is the costliest water. You can't mothball it, so you have to keep running it. But you have way cheaper water, and the taxpayer is grumbling as to why I should pay for running desalination plants with my money when it's not happening. So I think what will happen most likely in the Indian context is some amount of water will come from desalination. It will be a supplement. It will not be a full replacement. We'll have to position it appropriate to that condition or to that city.
And from Australia, I'll bring you to Chennai. Exactly same thing is happening here also. Yes. So now we have Pulal Pundi Chembrampakam. Yes. On top of that, they've created the Thervai Kandigai Reservoir, which is phenomenal. Perumbakam, Sittalapakam, Madambakam is being considered to be made mini reservoirs for the Tambaram zone. So, and as you know, Avadi on a given day received 32 centimeters rainfall in less than 9 hours. Right. We also have abundant fresh water, and desalination is extremely expensive. It's a nice fancy project that can go on, and as citizens like of Chennai, you and I talk about it more and more. I don't think government will go put more desalination plants because they've realized that it's expensive. I at least hope, right? And freshwater systems they're creating much more. Veeranamlindu pipe water we're bringing water. There's all this happening. So desalination may end up like not being pursued any further, but what exists would be run. That's point one. That's what ecological damage and all tremendous. Given that we are a sea turtle nesting paradise, right? And when we have dolphin, sharks, and everything, it is actually creating havoc. Yes, that Vadanemeli stretch, the beach erosion there. If you've been there 10 years ago, and if you're there now, you should actually see how they put those groins and how the beach is now gone. So it is unfortunate. Yes.
Sir, good evening, sir. Sir, from here. Yeah, I am from the banks of Tamarabarani River. Now I am staying in Chennai nearly a decade. And my question is, solid waste plays a major role in water restoration. So whenever the monsoon arrives Chennai, I used to get a joy. Our groundwater is getting recharged. But whenever the rain get down, I used to step out my house. Everybody is. I used to see most of the solid waste are clogged in the ends of the corners of the streets and all. And while I had awareness about these things, and I separated the waste, how the degradable and non-degradable waste, and I was satisfied myself. Oh, I am separating the waste and all. After a month, I went out and the waste collector, I saw the waste collector collecting my waste. They dumped together and posting into the separated vehicles. And I asked that collector, why my waste are not segregated like that? She said, you are the only guy who segregated from your street, but no one is not segregating. So that's the main thing. And also the constructional waste is playing a major role because the city is getting developing and most of the commercial sites are getting up. And recently a news came, Chennai is overtook Bengaluru in getting a commercial spaces are sold out in a very high percentage. I think so. No, no, I'm not commenting, but it not surprised the end.
We're beating them in something.
Yeah, because there is an industrial competition between the two cities for more than 4 decades, I think. I'm not sure about that. So my question is how the awareness should be in the next step from every door to door person, because I witnessed lots of solid waste in my areas, and also I am residing near Ennur only. Yeah, I am residing near Ennur, and now I am witnessing some of the wetlands are getting restored, and I noticed some of the notice boards on the corners of the wetlands. So how the next step would be? My question is.
My only excitement to answer before you finish is, where in Tirunelveli are you from?
Sir, I am from Thuthukudi district.
எங்க உங்க ஊர் பேர் சொல்லுங்க.
ஆத்தூர், நியர் ஆத்தூர்.
சூப்பர். அந்த ஆத்தூர் ஏரியும் நம்ம தான் பண்ணோம். எஸ், அதை பற்றி பேசலாம். அண்ட் யூ ஷுட் டெல் தம் த ஸ்டோரி ஆஃப் சவுத் ஆத்தூர், நார்த் ஆத்தூர். எப்படி அந்த ஏரி ஸ்ரீவைகுண்டம்லேருந்து இங்கெல்லாம் மேக் ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ் அண்ட் டெல் தம் தட். சாத்தாங்காடு, அதுக்கப்புறம் வந்து அரியலூர் டேங்க் நியர் எண்ணூர். These are the water bodies you would have seen restored. My only request is, don't feel demotivated or don't worry that nobody else is doing it, only you're doing it. We're all there. Yes, that's exactly how we feel.
Yeah, that's why my question is next.
Simple. Swachh Bharat mission ஒன்று இருக்குல்ல, whether you vote for them, you don't vote for them. நமக்கு நாமே இங்கே ஒன்று இருக்கு. Whether you vote for them, you don't vote for them. Government end of day, whether it's state or central, is our government. Yes. அந்த கவர்மெண்ட் வந்து இந்த மாதிரி ப்ராஜெக்ட்ஸ்லாம் கொண்டு வராங்க. ஜிசிசி இஸ் வெரி ஆக்டிவ் ஆன் ட்விட்டர். நீங்கள் என்ன பண்ணலாம்னா, எங்கே கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ஷன் டெபிரி கொட்டியிருக்கோ அதை ஒரு ஃபோட்டோ எடுத்து போட்டு, ஐ வில் கிவ் யூ தோஸ் ட்விட்டர் ஹேண்டில்ஸ், நீங்கள் போடுங்க. அதில் ஒரே 2-3 டேக் மட்டும் போடணும். ஸ்வச் பாரத், நமக்கு நாமேன்னு போட்டிங்கன்னா ஆக்சுவலி தேர் ஆர் அஃபிஷியல்ஸ். ஒன்று நல்லா புரிஞ்சுக்கோங்க, இட்ஸ் நாட் தட் த என்டையர் கவர்மெண்ட் சிஸ்டம் இஸ் நாட் ஒர்க்கிங். தேர் ஆர் வண்டர்ஃபுல் பீப்புள் ஹூ ஸ்டில் ஒர்க்கிங். And our job, people like you, me, our job should be to support and strengthen them. நம்ம வந்து ஏன் இப்படி நடக்குது அப்படின்னு கேட்கறதுக்குள்ள, இப்படி நடக்குது நான் என்ன பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்னு கேட்டோம்னா, they work with us, we work with them. So end of this, I will walk up to you, I'll take your number, and I will make sure I give you all these methods. Citizen journalism is a brilliant platform. Everybody now likes writing movie reviews and all that. Now I think it's time we start writing reviews for lakes, ponds. எங்க குப்பை இருக்கு, எங்க குப்பை இல்லை. டோன்ட் பிளேம் எனிபடி. பர்சனல் அட்டாக்ஸ் நிறைய வரும், அது பண்ணவே பண்ணாதீங்க. இந்த இடத்துல இப்படி கொட்டி இருக்கு அப்படிங்கிறத யூஸ் ட்விட்டர், லிங்க்டின், ஃபேஸ்புக், அண்ட் ஐ வில் கிவ் யூ செலக்ட் சிட்டிசன் ஜேர்னலிஸ்ட். இஃப் யூர் ஆல் ஓகே, தீஸ் ஆர் பீப்புள் ஹூ ஷுட் பி சப்போர்ட்டட். பத்மஜா அப்படின்னு டைம்ஸ் ஆஃப் இந்தியாவில் ஒருத்தங்க இருக்காங்க. எஸ், லாஸ்ட் வீக் திஸ் சிங்கிள் லேடி வாஸ் ரெஸ்பான்சிபிள் ஃபார் ப்ரிவென்டிங் அன் என்க்ரோச்மெண்ட் ஆன் த பீச் அட் கலாக்ஷேத்ரா காலனி. ஒருத்தங்க வந்து பீச்சில் பில்டிங் கட்ட போனாங்க. இவங்க ஆஸ் அ சிங்கிள் ஜேர்னலிஸ்ட் அந்த ஸ்டோரி கவர் பண்ண உடனே கமிஷனர் சென்னை, கிரேட்டர் சென்னை கார்பரேஷன் கேம். அதை உடனே ஸ்டாப் பண்ணாங்க. கலாக்ஷேத்ரா பின்னாடியே பீச்சில் கட்டடம் கட்ட பார்த்தாங்க, நின்று போச்சு. ஓம் ஜஸ்வின்னு இன்னொரு ஜேர்னலிஸ்ட் இருக்காரு. இவங்களெல்லாம் தயவு செஞ்சு ஃபாலோ பண்ணுங்க. அண்ட் ஏதாவது ஒன்று இந்த மாதிரி இஷ்யூ இருக்கும்போது நீங்கள் போட்டிங்கன்னா, இவங்களுக்குலாம் நிறைய இன்ஃப்ளூயன்ஷியல் ஃபாலோவர்ஸ் உண்டு, கவர்மெண்ட் அஃபீஷியல்ஸ் அவங்கெல்லாம். அண்ட் ரைட், இதெல்லாம் ஃபோட்டோ எடுத்து போட்டு இன்னொரு ஃபேக் ஹேண்டில் ஒன்று வச்சுக்கோங்களேன், ஐ கேர் அபவுட் என்ஆர் அப்படின்னு உங்களுக்கே ஒரு பேரை வச்சுக்கிட்டு நீங்கள் இதெல்லாம் போட்டிங்கன்னா, அதோ நாங்கள்லாம் இருக்கோம். வி வில் ஆல் ரீட்வீட் இட். சிட்டிசன் ஜேர்னலிசம் இஸ் அ ஹியூஜ் பூன் இன் த மாடர்ன் era. Please use it.
Hello sirs, my name is Edha. I am a school student, and first of all I would like to say that the entire presentation was quite impressive. People don't talk, my age people don't really talk about the most important source of livelihood, and I think that the presentation was amazing. I don't mean to bombard you with questions, but I've got about 3 questions. So the first one being, as one of the speakers already stated here, old apartment buildings do not support sustainability and newer technologies such as rain harvesting. Looking at Chennai alone, all the resident buildings here have been built for more than decades now. Like, how do we as people bring in these technologies in their daily life, since they're not really accustomed to it? Also, water tankers in the majority of suburban parts of India are made with plastics and microplastics, which could really seriously affect the common people living in the suburban areas. And we know that microplastics spread a lot of diseases through waterborne diseases. And the last one being, dependence of water is very important, but in most places of India, we have waters being transported through these water tankers we see. And I feel like everyone here knows that when you see a water tanking passing by, half the time you can see that the water is already overflowing to the tanker itself. And by the time it reaches the places it's supposed to reach, the water is not enough. And the people who really are in dire need of water don't really get it. So what are the solutions to all of this?
let me try and answer all three of your questions in one go. It's a bit complex and it's a bit difficult to understand from a perspective, right? All three things that you described are what is called state failure. If the state, the government, not just in Chennai, anywhere and everywhere, gave every citizen water in pipes, 24/7, drinkable water, there would be no bore wells, there would be no water tankers, there would be no plastic containers, there would be no water filters, RO systems, nothing. It's the state's inability to give water to every household which causes a problem. Second question, why is the state unable to give the water to everybody, the pipe network? Is it a resource issue? Is water running out? Or is it a financial issue? What I find from my understanding is it's not a water issue. There is enough and more water, and as I told you, you can actually take wastewater and convert it to drinking water. So there's no resource issue. It's a finance issue. Why is that finance issue not addressed? What happens in Bangalore, as an example, I get water in my house, I pay 7 rupees for 1,000 liters, and it's good quality drinking water. The poor person in the slum pays 5 rupees for 20 liters of RO water. Right? She is paying 250 rupees, I pay 7 rupees. The rich get the subsidy, the poor pay the highest price for water. They pay in terms of health, they pay in terms of time, they pay in terms of distance. This is the fundamental structural problem. The old apartment in Chennai need not do rainwater harvesting if the state had provided it water, right? So it's a suboptimal fix. It's putting Band-Aid on chickenpox. We need to fix the system completely. If we fix the system completely holistically, the environment is taken care of, citizens' requirements are taken care of, and livelihoods are taken care of. In the meantime, what should we do? We should try and find solutions from within the ambit, and for that I'll leave it to Arun.
A lot of school students these days are actually involved, engaged, which is what gives us hope, right? In our school days, maybe we didn't even know how to frame questions like this, right? Second being, don't stop it at framing that question. Look at how, as rightly pointed, maybe you should connect with the young man sitting behind you and look at how we all can brainstorm, right? Collective, collaborative energy towards putting our efforts on ground. Because today there's nobody ready to do things on ground. A lot of desktop conservationists, hardly few field workers. That is a gap that we have to bridge. In OMR, there are pipes which take water through the road, under that road, and there are buildings which are not connected to that pipe. It is a political thing, yes. Maybe we should talk more about this. When the recently concluded elections happened, who spoke about floods? Who spoke about not having water? Who spoke about desalination plants? Who spoke about treatment facilities? These all should become like a narrative setting, right? MRTS station buildings you've seen, right? Why are they such a colossal waste of space, right? It can become a gym, it can become a self-help group's working space, it can become NGO's working space, it can become a tech startup's working space. And for that, what we should do is when he starts that I care about Ennor Twitter handle, we should follow him. We should talk about this. You and I, again and again and again, only one thing. Collective narrative setting, positive narrative setting. When we do that, things will change.
Could I request one follow-up about the government part? Okay, so we know that the Indian government allocates millions of rupees towards water conservation, restoration, and the cleanliness plants. But they still fail to achieve these significant results. Is this the failure primarily due to the inefficiencies and the mismanagement of the government, not pointing hands out, but are they in the wrong for wasting the taxpayers' money for the failed results? Or does it stem from the common public's mismanagement and poor attitude towards water usage?
Just clap, that's all. Put both hands together. Yes, this is the government's mismanagement. This is our civic apathy. When you put both this together, that's India's water story. Yeah.
Sir, you just alluded about water, but if you look at it from Indian economy, around 45% of the population of Indian economy depends upon agriculture. And we are looking at silos. Electricity is not priced and each government gives a freebie. Does it have an impact on water? My second question is, should water be priced? Should we pay for water so that it makes judicious? And the third point is, you alluded to all-in-our will storm, which is not much said in India, which is tragedy of commons. But I'm quite surprised that both the speakers didn't allude to much of what is behavioral economics, what we call it as a nudge to create awareness? Would it be of help?
So let me just quickly answer your three questions one by one. The subsidy in power has been the single biggest reason why groundwater has been overexploited and why a lot of groundwater has run out in most parts of India, right? So they talk to each other. A water policy cannot be written in isolation from an agricultural policy, an energy policy, and a forest policy. All these four policies have to talk to each other and have to be written together. One policy in one direction, other in another direction will simply not work. That's the power question. The second question is regarding pricing of water. My stance as an individual is water is a human right. 50 liters per person per day should be free as a human right. The 51st liter which you use to wash your car should be priced at the marginal cost of pricing. Only when the consumer price will she conserve the water. Only when the consumer pays the true price for water will the institution have the fiscal power to invest in maintenance of the system and expanding the system and network. If the institution is broke, there is no chance of any maintenance and no chance of reaching all universal coverage, right? Second. Third, whose behavior has to be nudged is a big question to ask. The burden of nudge has now come on the individual when actually it's a state failure. And so therefore, I would think that we need to build the narratives to do the nudging at the right place for the right ideas, right? So we need to make sure in economics you would know that there's a Kuznets environmental curve. Some of you may know about it. That argument is till a nation reaches a level of GDP, it will not be able to invest in pollution control, for example, right? So if that holds good, then your question is answered in the sense it's not enough money is being invested in the water sector. Even though the state seems to be investing a lot of money, still not enough. And suboptimal investments will not work till we throw in the whole lot and fix the problem completely, right? Till that point, there will be a problem. So therefore, the gorilla in the room, the elephant in the room, the whale in the room is pricing. And if we don't get the prices right, we can talk till kingdom come. Nothing much will change.
The political appeasement is a huge problem. No denying it at all, right? And as long as political appeasement exists, these problems will exist. And with regards to pricing, exactly, 50th liter and 51st liter, definitely yes. And awareness, at what level? See, there is a new level of arrogance, modern arrogance which has come in, which is not letting the awareness penetrate, right? That is where the challenge is. And to see the kind of social divide that exists in this country on all lines of gender, religion, caste, creed, language, socio-economic parameters. There is no one bar of awareness which can go across every individual. So these are the challenges, and that's where we're all trying to do all that we can do.
Good evening, sir. I am a school student too. What can we as students do to contribute, and how can we volunteer with EFI?
indiaenvironment.org. Yeah. So that website has the contact details and more. Whichever school you're in, Ashwin, if you can raise your hand, I'll request Ashwin to meet with you. Whichever school you're studying in, your school's eco club teacher or anybody's number you have, if you can pass it on, we will come to your school straight away and we'll see how we can do a waste audit, water audit in your school, right? And we'll see how we can get you and your classmates to come for one of the cleanups, plantation, something, or we can even look at how we can somehow incubate an idea that comes from one of you. And we're going to invite the other school student, the tech entrepreneur, the Ennor guy, everybody to come be a part of this. And that lady who's actually been supporting since beginning in the green chudidar, you've actually been a boost of confidence for me because you've been listening. So we will pull everybody together and under CIC, we will all volunteer. Yes?
Yes, sir. Thank you. We would love to invite you to our school. Thank you, sir. Good evening, sir. I'm Smriti. So I'm from Tirunelveli. So I'm studying in DG Vaishnav College. நாங்கள் ஹாஸ்டலில் தான் ஸ்டே பண்ணியிருக்கோம். ஸோ வந்து ஹாஸ்டல்னால் எவ்வளோ தண்ணி வேஸ்ட் ஆகுன்றது இதே பண்ண முடியாது. ஸோ இட்ஸ் ஜஸ்ட் அ சஜஷன். அவேர்னஸ் வந்து இந்த இது வந்து நான் இன்ஸ்டாகிராம் பேஜில் தான் நான் பார்த்தேன். ஸோ அங்கே தான் இது பண்ணி வந்தேன். எங்களுக்கு வந்து அவேர்னஸே கிடையாது. வாட்டர் வேஸ்ட் ஆகுது, என்ன பண்ணணும், என்ன பண்ணக்கூடாது அப்படின்ற அவேர்னஸே இல்லை. ஸோ ஐ இன்வைட் யூ டு மை காலேஜ். கண்டிப்பாக காலேஜ்க்கு வந்து
100%. அருள்வாணி எங்கே இருக்கீங்க? கொஞ்சம் இவங்க அருள்வாணி இவங்க உங்க கூட இப்போ கனெக்ட் பண்ணுவாங்க.
Sure.
ஒரே ஒரு லிங்க்டின்ல ஒரு போஸ்ட் வந்து நீங்கள் பார்த்தீங்களா தெரியாது, ஒரு கடையில் ஒரு சிசிடிவி வச்சுருப்பாங்க, ஒரு ரெஃப்ரிஜரேட்டர் இருக்கும், டைல்ஸ் இருக்கும்,
Okay.
ஒருத்தர் குதிச்சு போவார். அந்த கடை ஓனர் அதுக்கப்புறம் என்ன பண்ணுவார்னா, அங்கே வந்து நம்ம இந்த பாண்டி ஆடுவோம்ல,
ஆமா.
அந்த பாண்டி ஆடுற மாதிரி கட்டம் போட்டு வச்சார்.
Okay.
உடனே என்ன பண்ணாங்கன்னா, பிஹேவியரல் சேஞ்ச், அவர் சொன்னது தான் அந்த நட்ஜ் கான்செப்ட் இல்லைங்களா. உடனே என்ன பண்ணுறாங்கன்னா, எல்லாரும் பாண்டி ஆடிக்கிட்டே ஃப்ரிட்ஜுக்கு போகிறாங்க.
Okay.
ஒரு எஸ்கலேட்டர் இருக்குது, ஒரு ஸ்டெப்ஸ் இருக்குது. அந்த ஸ்டெப்ஸில் வந்து என்ன பண்ணுறாங்கன்னா, கீபோர்டு மாதிரி, அந்த பியானோ கீபோர்டு மாதிரி ஒயிட் பிளாக் எல்லாம் அதில் குச்சு போகிறாங்க. அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு சோஷியல் எக்ஸ்பெரிமெண்ட் த்ரூ அருள்வாணி அண்ட் EFI we will do it in your hostel. ஏதாவது let's sit and brainstorm. சரிங்களா?
And one more thing, my mom, she's in Innerville and as well as Rotary. ஸோ அங்கே திருநெல்வேலியில் தான் அவங்க இருக்காங்க. லைக் இந்த அளவுக்கு பெருசாக அவங்க பண்ணலை. இப்போது ரீசெண்டாக ஒரு ஏரி தூர்வாரியிருக்காங்க. தூர்வாரிட்டு அப்புறம் அது சுற்றி வந்து மரம் வச்சுருக்காங்க. ஸோ லைக் planting trees also help in like
100% yes. For the interest of time, I'm going to request Arulwani to meet with you end of this.
Sure.
And we will definitely take this forward. Yes?
Okay, thank you.
So before I give the formal vote of thanks, can we have a very big round of applause for our two speakers? And let me assure you that CIC, this is just the beginning of a theme that we would like to follow up. So we would be in touch with both our eminent panelists, and we will see how CIC can be involved and how we can involve all of you, because we have an impact speakers program where we hope to take speakers to the colleges and schools, especially the government schools as well as the private schools, where we can, expose. நீங்கள் எல்லாம் சொன்னீங்க வந்து இந்த மாதிரி அவேர்னஸ் தான் வந்து கிரியேட் பண்ணணும்னு. அந்த அவேர்னஸ் கிரியேஷனில் சிஐசி உங்களோட இருக்கும். We request and we are going to sit down with Arun and work out a detailed program on how the CIC and its members can actually participate and actually be a part of the change that we all want. Every one of us wants change, but we want others to bring about the change and not ourselves. So we have to, remember that you have to initiate the change first, then change will happen. Every time looking at the other guy and saying he is not doing, but we as if we are doing everything. So we would request, all of you to please participate as a collective and see not only in the government space how we can, bring about better information to all of them, how we can revive some of the traditional methods that we have forgotten or we have deliberately ignored. How can we bring that into the policy space? How can we create better policy? You would remember that Chennai was Tamil Nadu was the first city or first state where rainwater harvesting was made compulsory. Everyone said this is not possible, how can we do it in old houses, but we did it. So sometimes, it is the policy, sometimes it is the cooperation of the people, and most of the time it's a combination of both that will bring about this change. So we hope to, enlist the support of all of you, work together, and take this conversation forward so that some meaningful change actually happens. So can we again give a standing ovation to our warriors and hope that many of you join them in their efforts to make life more sustainable. We've been talking about slogans, ease of doing business, ease of so-and-so, ease of that. Ease of living is what we require now. Basic necessities, water, air, all these need to become, easy for us as citizens. And therefore, we'll have to contribute together and make this happen. Thank you for attending today's event. The next event is next Friday, and this is on a different topic. It's on mathematics. And we have a very eminent mathematician from the US who is coming, Mr. Alladi Krishnasamy. Alladi Krishnasamy is a very eminent mathematician. He is coming down to the CIC. We hope that most of you, all of you would come and grace that occasion too. Thank you very much.